Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Daisy Jones and the Six Rewatch podcast. When I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut, which is another way to say carpe diem. And it's all about going after the things that you want in life. And something I wanted to do this year was rewatch the show Daisy Jones and the Six, and this time talk about it with other people. So here we are. We're on episode 9, track 9. We are so close to the end of the show, the penultimate episode of this show. At this point, it's like really rolling to a finish. They've set everything up, and there's so much momentum in the show. So let's get into episode 9. It's called Feels Like the First Time. It originally aired March 24th, 2023. It was written for television by Junalina Nera and directed by Nzinga Stewart. And here's the summary, the description of the episode. Enraged at Nikki's abandonment, Daisy orders him to leave. The six proceed with the tour and successfully perform at several stops. Daisy cuts back heavily on drug use and reconnects with Billy after admitting she needs help. Karen tells Graham she's pregnant but does not want to keep the baby. After the band performs on Saturday Night Live, Warren begins dating the night's celebrity guest host, and Teddy suffers a heart attack. Meanwhile, Simone is hesitant to sign a record deal as the label expects her to hide her sexuality. Simone rushes to the hospital after hearing of Teddy's heart attack, and she and Daisy make amends. On the band's hometown stop in Pittsburgh, Daisy and Billy confess mutual feelings, but Billy rebuffs the prospect of a relationship out of loyalty to Camilla. Camilla accompanies Karen to an abortion clinic, but subsequently catches Billy and Daisy in an emotionally intimate moment. During the concert, Billy takes one of Eddie's solos. The next day, the group resentfully departs Pittsburgh for Chicago. A lot for the recap to recap there. So that's the big picture, but we're going to get into the details here because there's quite a lot of details to look at. And remember, where we left off was Daisy had just overdosed, and she, like, her eyes opened for a second to see Billy staring down at her, but then she closes her eyes again. So when you leave off that episode, it's like, is this woman alive? What's going on here? So this episode is going to answer it right away. And this is an episode where we get a cold open. So we don't go straight into credits like we do in most of the episodes. We get to answer the big question that we left off on, the one that the audience perhaps is worried about, right away. So this cold open is going to be set to Fleetwood Mac. We're going to hear Gold Dust Woman. The notes of that open this episode. We get a hazy morning light. And you know what I like about this? Because in the previous episode, Nikki and Daisy partying, kind of anything went with the camera work and the editing to make it feel like drug-induced, party atmosphere. Everything was off balance and off kilter. Everything was blurry. But they saved some tricks up their sleeve for the opening of this episode where we still have to get blurry, but they do it in different ways. Daisy's just like coming to, and she's very disoriented. And so we use some different camera techniques here that perhaps we didn't see in the previous episode, but that fit really well. And it's in a conversation with what we saw in the last episode. So we get this like blurry lens up close on Daisy. She's in bed. She's wearing the outfit that we saw her the end of the last episode because she was put to bed and she's just waking up now. She exhales, she opens her eyes, and she opens and closes them again. She's definitely trying to wake up and like figure out what's happening with the world or that she's in right now. We see a blurry Nikki come into view. He's blurry and the view behind him is blurry. But he smiles and he gently kind of walks into the room like, I've always been here. Nikki says, hi, did I wake you? And he approaches her. He sits on the bed. And then as he gets closer to her, his face gets a little bit more in focus. It's still a little blurry and the background is blurry. We're hearing Rock On Gold Dust Woman, take your silver spoon. Daisy's totally disoriented right now. She's like, what happened? He says, you had a bit of fun, maybe too much, but you're okay now. The light is streaming in behind him. and it makes him kind of hazy, but the light is hitting Daisy front on. So, she seems clear to us, the way she would to anybody else in that room. Her eye makeup is all smeared and her hair is matted because, well, she was a mess last night. She's just as much of a mess today, if not more. Nikki says, I'm going to call for some breakfast. He touches her face. She's noticing like maybe she has a weird taste in her mouth. She looks down. She notices she has a bandage on her arm, like maybe there was an IV in there. Um, we're hearing more lyrics from Gold Dust Woman, Pick Your Path and I'll Pray. Nikki gets on the phone to order breakfast. And as he's doing that, she's looking at him and she's thinking about what happened. She's maybe registering some things. And we hear the lyrics, in the morning, loves to go down. And Daisy's thinking and she's maybe remembering more of what's happening. She's looking at Nikki. She gets a bit of a stern look on her face. She's going to get out of bed with purpose and she leaves the room. Nikki is on the phone ordering and he's like, hang on. He puts the phone down. He's going to chase her out of the room. She leaves the room. She walks down the hallway again with purpose. He's following her because he doesn't really want her to ask questions about what happened last night. He's like, where are you going? She knocks on somebody's door. He says, Daisy, you should be in bed. Come on, come back in. The door that Daisy's knocking on opens. We don't see who's opening it. We see her at the door. The door gets opened. Daisy walks inside quickly and then slams the door in Nikki's face. And then we're going to cut to inside of Billy's hotel room where Daisy is walking in. She's holding herself. She does this coping mechanism more than once here at the start of the episode. She's holding herself, kind of comforting herself. Billy walks in behind her. And we hear Nikki pounding on the door. He's shouting her name. Daisy and Billy are going to walk away from the door towards the window. It's nicely lit. I'm guessing that's why they chose that spot. And so Billy very delicately says, you okay? And honestly, in this conversation, he kind of looks like he's seen a ghost. I can, he knows what happened last night. He fully has had all night to process what happened last night. He probably hasn't slept a wink. Daisy, obviously she seems to be doing better, but like this is a dead woman walking as far as Billy's concerned. Like I can't even imagine. She was in his arms the night before. He was like willing her back to life. She comes to for a moment, opens her eyes. They lock eyes with each other. She shuts her eyes again. The doctor comes in and he hopes for the best and leaves the room, right? But like, I can only imagine her coming into the room the next day. He just looks like he experienced a trauma here too. And he's not going to say that because Daisy's the one who actually experienced it. But being on the scene like that, the way that Sam Claflin performs this, I really feel how rocked his world got. Okay. He says, you okay? Daisy's gonna put her hands on Billy's arms, like here and here. Not hugging herself like I was just doing, but like here and here. And she says, I need you to tell me what happened. He looks towards the door where Nikki's still shouting, and we're hearing him say, Daisy, please. Billy looks towards the door. He's like, how much do you remember? He's a little reluctant. His face, he looks haunted, is the word that I came up with for this. Haunted by the image of what he saw from Daisy last night. Daisy says, I remember you were there. She's feeling very vulnerable. Nikki is still shouting for Daisy to open the effing door. Daisy's like starting to kind of tear up a bit. Billy's voice is shaking. He's saying, Rod called a doctor and he got the drugs out of your system. We left. I didn't think you'd want me there when you woke up. Daisy whispers. She looks to the door where Nikki is and she says, and where was he the whole time? Billy and Daisy are standing very close to each other. Billy does not really want to answer this. And Daisy just kind of, you can see the tears welling up. She's getting ready to cry here because my goodness, this is the man she's married to. We're going to see the camera now on Nikki out in the hallway. Daisy opens the hotel room door and comes out, and Nikki's kind of like ready to receive her. And Daisy says, "Pack your shit up." She slams Billy's door. Daisy walks with purpose down the hall back to her room. Nikki's following her. He's calling her name. He says, "You wouldn't listen, okay? I didn't know what to do." Daisy, whose nerves are like frayed to the very edge, she shouts, "You left me in the effing shower." Uh, I really enjoy this shot. Not that there were probably a whole lot of ways to block this, but I love this shot of we're just looking down a long hallway. We've got Nikki and Daisy in the foreground, and we've got all these hotel rooms, and only the six is on this floor with her. So, like, one by one, we see everybody like peering their head out their door. So it's just this sort of like long line of faces of the six getting, more distant in the background. The focus is on Nikki and Daisy in the foreground, but I love, I don't know, I love something about the way this is shot, the blocking of it. Again, I don't know that there's another way that they could have even done it, but something about like the whole six is here. I'm sure everybody heard about what happened last night, and they're ready to go to bat for Daisy. And you can really feel it in this. And it feels claustrophobic for Nikki. And it feels maybe claustrophobic for Daisy as well, because I don't know that she would actually want people to know what happened to her last night, but that's the result. Um, so we're seeing this is the blocking. We can see it starts with Nikki and Daisy in the foreground. We can see Billy watching from his doorway, which is pretty far down the hallway. And then as more doors open, we see Warren come to his door, Graham to his. Then Karen joins Graham. Rod comes out. He's all the way at the end. Eddie comes out. He was in Warren's room, I believe. And Nikki's distressed. He's like, "Daisy." She says, "I said, pack your shit up and get out of here." Graham starts to walk closer. Rod is starting to walk closer, but he's way down the hallway. Warren and Eddie start to walk closer. So, like, Graham, Warren, and Eddie are sort of the closest to the situation, and they're going to be like sort of a "we've got this" wall of men to potentially like back up Daisy against Nikki. Daisy goes into the room for a second. She takes Nikki's suitcase, she throws it out into the hallway. She leaves the room, goes into the hallway, comes towards the guys, and she looks back at Nikki. Um, so she had said, "Pack your stuff up and go." Nikki says, "No." Daisy doesn't want to have to say it twice. So she scoffs. She picks up a little statue on a table in the hallway and she throws it at the wall near him and breaks it. And Nikki's like, "Daisy." Graham, Warren, and Eddie are coming even closer to Daisy for support. Daisy pushes Nikki aggressively. She wants him out. He not only doesn't leave, he pushes her back and raises his arm to hit her. And Warren jumps in, and he's the first one there. He fends Nikki off. Eddie and Graham are right there with him, though. And Warren says, "You heard the lady. You heard her." Nikki says, "You're making a huge effing mistake." He grabs the bags. This song is, he says, "You'll regret this." The song is continuing. "Well, did she make you cry, make you break down, shatter your illusions of love?" Pretty on point. Um, Daisy is starting to cry. Eddie goes to put a hand on her shoulder, and she doesn't want to be touched. She's like sort of gesturing for the guys to walk away. They do, and then Karen is going to start to come up and support her as the woman in the room. She's kind of shaking it off a little bit. She's adjusting her shirt. She's starting to cry. Karen comes up and gives her a huge hug. She holds Daisy, and Daisy breaks down. She cries into Karen's shoulder. And again, the camera sort of sweeps around Daisy and Karen so that you can see who's still in the hallway. And Billy and Rod are still watching from the end of the hallway. Billy isn't taking his eyes off of this situation, really. In the lyrics, as they wrap up this scene, "And is it over now? Do you know how to pick up the pieces and go home? And now tell me, is it over now? Do you know how?" Um, you know, the very on the nose lyrics, I'd say, for the situation that we're in, at least the ones that we get in this portion of the song. Um, Let's talk a little bit about Nikki because I think one of the things I've been working on, and I've actually already recorded it, is much, much, much later. I'm going to drop a bonus episode of the show versus the book and the differences between them. And there are a bunch of differences for Niccolo in the book. And one of them is that he's kind of a jerk from the very beginning. Not, he's never portrayed to be a good influence on Daisy. And I suppose that's where they were headed with Nikki in the show. But they start Nikki in this place where I have real empathy for him in episode 7, where we see him in Greece. We find out the hard times he's been through, that his friends have been worried about him, that he's been deeply in grief and depressed, and that he hasn't really been opening up to people about it. And even with Daisy there, we can see these moments where when he's alone, he has this really far away look. We can see that he's being supportive to Daisy in episode 7. He initially thinks that he sort of backs Daisy up against Simone initially because he doesn't think Simone knows what she's talking about, because Daisy has never talked about the Six. She hasn't talked about her music. If she wanted to, she probably would have told Nikki about it. But as more information comes to light in that episode, you can see that he rallies and he's like, maybe you should go. In fact, not only does he say maybe you should go back to LA, he picks up his suitcase to pack his suitcase to say, you're not doing it alone. So I really liked the Nikki that I saw in episode 7. And, in episode 8, we're going to get both of them coming back to LA. And, I think Nikki doesn't really know what he's gotten himself into. He's out of his comfort zone. He doesn't have his support system there. And he's figuring out exactly what Daisy's world looked like. And maybe as much information as she might have told him before they left, he probably didn't have the full picture. And her rendition of what it would be like with Billy now was probably a wishful thinking rendition. So when he sees, initially she's able to put up the dividing wall between herself and Billy, but over the course of more stops of the tour, that starts to break down a little bit. And Nikki starts to get a real picture of what that connection between those two characters actually looked like. And he's in trouble. Nikki's in trouble. And in the course of episode 8, he starts reaching for more coping mechanisms, which are drugs and more alcohol and the partying. And he looks for any loyalty and affirmations from Daisy that he can get. He looks for any moments to bond with her, which is generally through taking drugs. And it's the one thing that Daisy can't do with Billy. And so there's this evolution, I think. And now we've got, this episode, Nikki is coming off of probably the moment of his life that he's the least proud of. He was uh, out of his mind in terms of like high, drunk, um, probably terrified for Daisy, unprepared to deal with the situation in the state that he was in, possibly in any state. I don't know to what extent his position or rank requires him to not be involved in a situation like this, but I actually feel like that's not as much of a factor as just the fact that he was like really high, probably very paranoid, and I saw his response in the last episode as one of more like flight of the fight, flight, or freeze, and not really knowing, like being so drugged up that his right mind was not functioning, and that's what he did on instinct. Um, and you get to this episode, and he has this secret from Daisy that is a secret with nobody else in the band. It is just a matter of time before somebody says to Daisy, "This man left you on the floor." And didn't stay to check if you were okay. And he shows up in the morning and he's trying to put on this face of like, yeah, you were a little out of it last night, and here I am providing for you, getting breakfast. And that the hole is going to be poked in that real fast. He's got to know that. And he is in her world now, and I mean, it's bad, right? So him trying to cling to this marriage, first of all, for Nikki, probably not a great idea to try to cling to this anyway, because you've learned enough, Nikki. Like this woman, this is not the relationship you thought you were in. But he goes as far as to raise a hand to her, and then of course you're going to say that sucks, like that. I don't condone this. They got us there. I think I understand the trajectory of how we got from one place to the next. Um, I never saw him as a violent person up until this point. So him raising a hand to her feels a little out of character, but everything else about what he's done feels in character. If I follow what has progressed here, if you came to the book first, you probably expected Nikki to be this way for the entire time. So maybe you're more inclined to say this is how Nikki is. But I've got to say, examining him from episode 7, this was not that Nikki. This is a guy who is also addicted to drugs and alcohol, and a violent side of him has come out after a really scary night, and not good. Not good, but that's kind of the only way that I can explain the raising of the hand with what we saw of him in episode 7 and 8. So I wanted to spend a little time on that because that was Nikki, folks. That's what we get. And it's an important moment in the show. Um, so okay. We go from here to the opening credits, as always, Patti Smith dancing barefoot. And then we are going to get the track 9 feels like the first time. We're going to see Daisy on on her bus. We see her reflection in the window as she's staring out of it, and we hear a voiceover from Interview Daisy who's saying, "You start doing drugs to escape and to dull your emotions." She turns her head forward on the bus towards the camera. She looks devastated. She looks like a woman who was dead last night for a minute. She says, you start doing drugs to escape and to dull your emotions, but drugs don't dull your emotions, they heighten them. We then see Interview Daisy. She says, so coming down is a lot like rediscovering your sanity. We're going to see the We Love Billy bus pull up to a cheering crowd. The whole band gets off the bus. Interview Daisy's voiceover continues. She says, and when you rediscover your sanity, it's only a matter of time before you remember what it was you needed to escape from in the first place. It's interesting because I think a lot of times when we see depictions of people like going through withdrawal, or like when we think about that relationship to being high and being addicted, I think a lot of times we look at the shows and movies tend to most easily portray that with like physical symptoms, which surely there's a lot of that. But Daisy is talking about it here from an emotional perspective, and that feels aligned with how Daisy would even write her lyrics. So, I don't know. I connect with how that's expressed to us here. A fan shouts to Daisy for an autograph, and she keeps walking. And then that fan gets angry and they say, effing bitch. And Rod, knowing exactly what Daisy's just been through, he's going to turn back to that fan. He's going to walk over and address this person. Security keeps walking Daisy forward, but she heard this. And this kind of stuff is really getting in. She can't shake this off very easily right now. And then we're going to see the show that night. We're on stage. Billy and Daisy are each at their own mics. They're singing a sadder song, You Were Gone. Daisy is fixed in place at her mic. She's not walking around. She's not dancing around. She's not joining Billy at his mic. She's just fixed in place at her own mic. Every story has an ending, and it's not our job to stay. Now, how about we turn it off? We'll forget it like it's gone. Those are the lyrics we're hearing here. I mean, ouch. We're closer up on Daisy here as she's singing this. She looks like she's gonna cry. Billy's watching her again. He's just, I mean, on the one hand, he might be watching her thinking like about how she basically looked dead in his arms. That he's, thankful she's alive. But also, you can see him watching her with concern because how do you get Daisy on the other side of this really traumatic incident? So we're going to see interview Karen explaining this. Even in shambles, Daisy was a powerhouse, but this was just sad. We'll see Daisy making a call from a payphone outside of I don't know if it's a hotel. It's a covered area. It's raining outside the covered area, so it's just a dreary scene. And she's got this big red coat with this fur lining, and she's saying, "Pick up, Simone." And we hear the line ringing, but Simone does not pick up. The lyric here is, "When I needed you, you were gone, you were gone, you were gone," from what they were singing at the concert. Um, Again, on the nose, well edited and played here. We're going to see then Billy watching a movie on his bus in the sitting area. He's alone. What's this movie? Can anybody tell me what this movie is? There's a knock on his door. Daisy enters. She sits down and she's across from him. He shuts off the movie. She says, "Hi, I can't be on that bus anymore." And you can hear the chatter and the laughter that's happening outside as they're partying. She's sort of adjusting her clothes. Once again, she's holding herself as she's sitting in front of him. Billy sighs. He sits back. I mean, my goodness, looking at their faces, Sam Claflin. Just there are just so many layers of how haunted he is by the image of Daisy in front of him, and he probably keeps superimposing it with the image of Daisy like OD in front of him. He's rattled. He seems really rattled. Um, it's hard to watch almost. I mean, it's hard to watch her, but it's also hard to watch him because of all the layers of what you think he's probably thinking here. Daisy says, "I've wanted this life since I was 14 years old." He says, "Me too." She says, "So why are we so unhappy?" She was looking away from him. And when she asks that question, she looks straight at him like, "I need answers here." Billy very quietly says, "I don't know." She says, "I don't either." And that just makes it worse. "And you make it worse." He says, "How do I make it worse?" She says, "Because you were right." She's looking right at him. She says, "And I hate that. I hate that you saw me like that. And I hate that you were the one who saved me." Um, yeah, what a vulnerable thing. I especially after this guy after the Rolling Stone article incident, like surely this is not the person she wants saving her. Um, but that is what happened. Billy considers what she's saying. He says, "I've been there too, remember? Why don't you call Teddy?" She's sort of shaking her head. He says, "I'd take you, right, if you ever wanted to go to rehab," is what he's saying. She looks at him. They sort of hold each other's gaze. There's a nice long hold there. They hear laughter outside. Daisy looks out the window and then she says, looking like she's going to cry, she says, "Can I sleep here tonight?" He nods very quietly. He says, "Of course." He gets up. He goes into his room. He makes it clear like he'll give her some space. He looks back at her though, and she's sort of looking at him sitting on those like the seats in that area of the bus. She lays down and he keeps looking at her. Then we see Camilla on the phone in her kitchen, and apparently Billy's relaying this to Camilla right now. So it's the next day. Camilla's in her robe, and she's like, "Wait. He was just gonna leave her there?" And Billy over the phone says, "I guess." And then we're going to see him at a payphone. It's daytime. The bus is stopped. Daisy is leaning up against it. She's stretching her arm because, she slept on a bus maybe a little awkwardly on that one seat. Camilla's like, "That's awful. Poor Daisy. Is she okay?" Billy looks, he can see Daisy from where he's standing. He says, "She's Daisy, so..." And then we see Daisy watching him. Camera gets up close to Daisy and sees Daisy looking back at Billy. The interviewer's voice says, "How did it feel to be sober on tour?" And interview Daisy's voice says, "Sober isn't the right word for it." Now, what I did was, and then we see Daisy against the bus taking a pill. She says, what I did was I started making rules for myself. No Dexies in the morning, a bump of Coke, but only before shows, a Quaalude at night to bring me down. We see her take a Quaalude at night. She says, "It was the best thing I could do under the circumstances." We then see Daisy in bed after taking the pill, looking at the unopened envelope from her mom. Chekhov's unopened envelope. Okay, we're going to get a pre-lap of the end of the song Kill You to Try from another concert. Daisy is on stage looking, the camera's pretty close, so we're mostly just seeing Daisy in this frame. She looks solemn. She looks like she did cry, and this is her face after. The crowd is cheering. She's just sort of staring out at them like they're a great distance away from her. The camera pulls back a bit so we can see more, and Billy comes up to her. He says, "You need a rest. Take it." And Daisy looks back as Billy switches guitars. And Daisy goes to her mic. The crowd cheers because what's Daisy going to do? They don't know what happened. And Daisy says into the mic, "I almost died the other night." And the band looks at her frozen. Like she's saying it. She's saying it. I mean, what a thing to get off your chest in front of tens of thousands of people. Um, my goodness. I mean, if they had a PR person here, I think that PR person would be working overtime today. But she says the thing. The band is frozen. We have a fan shouts, "We love you, Daisy." Billy is watching her. He's alert. He's holding his breath. Daisy holds up her finger. She's like, "I was this close." Another fan says, "Daisy, I love you." Billy can't even look at her at this particular moment because just putting words to it, like it's he saw what she looked like. He can verify. He's one of a couple people at this stadium who can verify what it looked like for Daisy to be this close to death. Daisy says, "But I'm alive tonight." The crowd roars, and then she gestures with open arms out to everybody. She says, "And you're alive tonight." Billy watches her, and a little smile starts to form for him. And she says, "So let's just stay alive a little bit longer." Billy looks back at Warren, nods to him, and Warren starts playing the drums. Billy smiles at Daisy. She smiles back. Okay, we're kind of ready to move forward now. You don't forget about this, but either maybe she's ready to move forward. And until Daisy's ready to move forward, Billy can't really move forward with it either, because as long as she's reliving it, he's reliving it too. Not to say that he can't still be thinking about it if she starts to move forward, but I mean, goodness, like it's a reminder to both of them. So after the show, the band is going to come around backstage. They're buzzing with excitement. They finally feel like, okay, maybe we're back onto something here. I mean, maybe it's not going to be like awful energy forever. Warren and Eddie are happy. Graham is going to give Karen a piggyback. Billy and Daisy are chatting, but they have energy to their chat. Rod comes up to them, glowing, happy. He's like, "Pyrotechnics." Daisy says, "Excuse me?" He says, "You guys are selling out 15,000 seaters now." Billy laughs. He's smiling at Daisy. Rod says, "Don't you think it's time to add a little fire, a little scope?" Daisy puts a hand on Rod. She says, Rod, don't overthink it. I'm the fire." Billy is smiling. Daisy walks away. Rod and Billy both watch her walk away. Billy says, "She's back." And Rod smiles. And I really like that we have this scene here because on paper, you don't need this scene. What I love about this is that Rod and Billy were there to find Daisy in her worst state. And there's something very full circle. Maybe it's not a full circle. Is it a 180? I don't know where we would be now, but it's something that feels like closure to me, that these two people have this moment where they can see Daisy up on her feet saying, "I'm the fire" again. Um, I don't know. Closure is the word that I want there. We're going to get interview Eddie saying, "Spring 77, this was our moment." Interview Graham says, it's when you least want things to change that they always do." Aha. A line like this from Graham is meant to set up like next active story. Like, don't get too comfortable. We're gonna see some of the band watching an underground punk band. We've got Eddie, Graham, Karen, and Warren. They're all out watching some other band perform. Eddie looks flat out distressed. He's shaking his head. He's like, "It's over. Why would anybody care about us when stuff like this exists?" And he's like, "We're done, man. We're dinosaurs. It's the punk rock era." Uh, Karen says, "What are you talking about? Don't worry so much." Warren gives him a beer. And Warren's not as impressed with what he's listening to. He's like, "What is this shit?" Eddie, wide-eyed, says, "The future." I mean, it's a lot, Eddie. You're being a lot. And chances are you won't be not selling out to 15,000 seat crowds anymore because of these guys. But, Eddie's nervous. Eddie walks towards the light. He walks towards the band that's playing. And Graham pulls Karen close. Warren goes to check something else out. Graham pulls Karen close. He's like, "You remember playing rooms this size?" Karen's like, "Yeah." Graham says, "I kind of miss it." Karen says, "Me too. I mean, it was like a year ago. It wasn't long ago. Do you remember?" Yep. Yep, I remember, Graham. Uh, Graham says, "I kind of miss it." Karen says, "Me too." The song ends. People are cheering, cursing a lot at each other just for fun. Um, one of the band members gets off stage. He's walking past Eddie, and Eddie decides to like name drop himself. I couldn't even say that without laughing. Eddie is not, it's not his best look this episode. Eddie's like, "Oh, hey man, I'm in a band too. The Six." The guy gives a slight nod of maybe recognition, and Eddie's kind of caught off guard by that. He's like, "I mean, you probably don't listen to the radio." The guy's like, "Yeah, I've heard of you. My little sister plays your record all the time." And the thing is, like, he says it so dryly. He's not trying to insult Eddie, but he totally insults Eddie. And Eddie has to absorb this gut punch. And there was Eddie trying hard to be cool to this guy. And here's this guy being like, "Yeah, I heard you." It's so good. Um, we're gonna get a pre-lap of Toto's Hold the Line. Interview Warren says, "We had the biggest album in the country. We were nominated for a whole bunch of effing Grammys. We were on Saturday Night Live." I mean, Interview Eddie says, "It's called a moment for a reason, though, right?" We get the intertitle of New York. Big, big words on the screen. And there's a crowd cheering outside for a bus at night. So we're going to the SNL show. The band gets off the bus. They're greeted by fans. Daisy's going to throw something back to a rod for him to hold. And the song is saying stuff like, "It's not in the way that you hold me. It's not in the way you say you care. Hold the line. Love isn't always on time." Maybe less on the nose. So a mom in the audience calls to Daisy and she says, "My daughter wants to be you when she grows up." And Daisy squats down to get to that little girl's level. She talks directly to her. She says, "Dream bigger, little bird. You can be anything you want to be." And she smiles at her. I mean, what a nice thing. I mean, I think, look, Daisy, with adults isn't always going to give them the time of day, but with this little girl, she sure will. And she maybe sees little Margaret in all the little girls that she sees around her. So she wants to not ignore them like she was ignored. She gives this girl a solid bit of eye contact and real recognition. We're going to see Karen and Billy signing autographs. The band goes inside the building, and somebody is going to take Billy and Daisy to the room that Teddy's in. And Billy's like, "Hey, look at this guy." They all hug. They hug Teddy. They're all hugging. Billy says, Teddy says, "Rod didn't tell you I was coming." Daisy says, "Well, he did, but we didn't think you'd show up." Teddy says, "Hey, come on. You know I wouldn't miss this for the world." Billy goes to get ready. Daisy smiles at Teddy. He says, "Is Simone with you?" She says, "No." He says, I told her I'd meet her for a drink, but I just figured I'd catch up with her here first." He's like, "Oh, I don't know. See you in a minute." Puts a hand on his shoulder and leaves. There's a lot of putting hands on shoulders in this episode. So Teddy doesn't even know that there was this falling out between Simone and Daisy. I don't know how much Teddy knows exactly. I assume Rod would have told him that about Daisy ODing. He certainly has to know now that Daisy told an entire stadium full of people about it. That's going to get back to Teddy right quick. But yeah, I think he's Teddy is not in the loop about Simone and Daisy being on the outs right now. So there's that. Daisy now is at a makeup mirror. She's freaking out. She's rifling through her bag. She can't find her drugs. Billy comes in and sees her. He's trying to get her attention. He comes over to her to try to cut through the noise of what's happening for her right now. She says, "I'm sorry, I can't find my effing pills." She's panicking. You can see it in her eyes. She says, I can't. Billy very calmly, just standing right in front of her, making full eye contact, says it's okay. Like everything about Billy's energy towards Daisy at this SNL show is about like, I'm getting you through this. It's like the most codependent I think I'll ever see them in this show. Um, but she is coming off of something super traumatic, and so is he. And this is a way that he can support her to get on her feet. She doesn't seem to know where her pills are, but she's got this. And the icon, just this is such a cool performance, actually. Daisy says it's not okay. Everything feels too real. He, again, when you think about choices here, he's going to put his hands on her arms like this, but reaching out in front of him, the way that she did when she went to his hotel room in the beginning of this episode. "Tell me what happened," she said. Well, now he's saying, you know, she's like, "It's not okay. Everything feels too real." And he puts his hands on her, um, and he just smiles at her and he doesn't break eye contact with her. She's like, "I can't do it." He's like, "I got you." So I think it's almost like this is a gesture, the touching of the arms, like the holding of the arms is like a gesture that's part of their vocabulary now. And here it is being used again in a moment that's it's needed. Okay. Interesting choice of how to shoot this. We have to start the SNL. We're not starting the SNL show. We're starting their performance at the SNL show. So we're going to see that there's a stage manager. The camera is looking over the shoulder of a stage manager. And over his shoulder, we can see Lisa Crown, the actress who's going to announce the band that's over her shoulder, with which is Daisy Jones and the Six. So it's a very like triple self-portrait sort of a thing that's happening here. Um, but I love that, the stage manager is going 5, 4, and then as he continues counting down, he counts down silently. But because the camera is behind him, we can pick up the 3, 2, 1 by seeing his fingers count down. Lisa Crown, actress, says, "Ladies and gentlemen, my new favorite band, Daisy Jones and the Six." The crowd is cheering. Lisa walks back towards the back of the room. There's a red glow over the scene as she's walking back, but when the camera cuts to Daisy, there's a blue glow over Daisy for whatever reason. So the camera goes close up on Daisy. We get a tilted camera, really just like off axis, just disorienting. She looks worried. There's a kind of a haze over her face, if you will. We hear like a high-pitched ringing sound in this part. You can see how Daisy is worried, and we hear the crowd cheering, but they start to sound further and further away. So it feels like a panic attack is forming for her. And then the light shines on Daisy, and the opening notes of Aurora play. The drums start. Billy looks at Daisy and he winks at her. It's like he's just doing what he can to like snap her out of that moment that she was having and get her into the performance. I guess in the theory that when she's in the groove of performing, she'll be okay. She'll be Daisy. We're going to see a monitor from inside the studio watching them. Uh, and then we pan around to see the band actually playing, and Daisy is playing the tambourine. In certain songs, she does like her dance is like bending one knee at a time. And if she wants to stand still, that's where she starts with it. She's feeling it, but she's not walking around the stage. I do like these choices. I mean, I think first of all, it's a way to give you the perspective that they're at the Saturday Night Live show by giving you, okay, there's an audience in the back, and then like giving you the over the shoulder of the guy counting down and showing you the monitor watching them. There's all of these things that let you see like this is a different environment for them to be in, but it's also going to connect us to the fact that Simone's watching this on TV later. Um, it just is that thread that continues through it. So Billy and Daisy start singing together, You Found Me in Flames. It's the daylight of change. Billy and Daisy make eye contact here. Feels very dependent on each other, but like we are going to get through this. Dependent in a way that I think is necessary right now. He smiles here when he's singing, which is something we've seen Daisy do, but it's like there's going to be a lot of mirroring in this performance. I love that. I imagine it was written into the script that way, that we're going to get a ton of mirroring here. So he smiles when he sings some of these lyrics, which is something we know Daisy to do. She does the same. She sees him smile, she smiles. And all that stuff is done. You're my morning sun. Aurora, you're the one. You're my morning sun. We're going to see it looks like the camera is maybe handheld here and it's moving between them. It's showing their continued eye contact. Like, we've got this. Like, I'm here for you as long as you need me. The lyrics continue, Aurora, you're the one. That's a very long held note. We're going to see a new perspective. The camera is going to point to like the back of them from the wings. And then we see it's Teddy's point of view because we're actually now going to see Rod and Teddy watching from that position. And Teddy has like a soft smile on his face, like, my babies are playing at the Saturday Night Live showing. Um, my children. And he's got beads of sweat all over his face. He looks like he's clammy and he's got a cold sweat going on. They get to sort of like the call and response part of the song. So he's saying, Billy says, and where did you turn? Daisy says, where did you turn? She starts sort of shuffling her hips a little. Billy says, when you needed tenderness. She says, when you needed tenderness. The camera pulls back as we see Simone watching this performance from whatever room she's in. She's watching it on TV. Billy and Daisy are continuing to sing, but we're not hearing the volume of their song is lowered as we're going to see a Simone scene. So Billy and Daisy are continuing, when you reach out for my touch, when you reach out for my touch, and I couldn't give you much. So Simone, in whatever room she's in, looks away from her screen and she hears a knock on the door. And a man comes in, he says, hot off the presses, he's got an envelope for her. She smiles, she takes the envelope from him. He says, I wanted to bring it to you as soon as I got it. Sorry it took so long. She's flipping through the papers. She's like, you kidding me? I've been waiting for this my whole life. And the man says, well, then Attic Records is lucky to have you. He holds out a pen. She takes it to sign the paper. So she's getting a contract with Attic Records. He says, there's just one thing. She stops. She looks at him. He's like, we should talk about it. I'm not entirely sure who this man is. I don't think it's a representative of Attic Records because I don't think that he would. Is it a representative of Attic Records? I don't know. Does she have a manager that's not Teddy? Can't imagine that. Don't know what's happening here. But here's this guy giving her a contract. Welcome to the show, man. Maybe I missed him. Was he in a previous episode and I missed that somewhere? Okay. We're going to go back to the performance. So we've just given this little interlude to say, like, there's stuff happening with Simone here. We go back to the performance. Daisy and Billy are still on stage. The whole band is singing Aurora. Daisy and Billy are singing together. I kind of thought that night was going to last forever. Billy, when he sings this, he gets really into it. He puts a hand on his mic and he sings with his eyes closed. Daisy sees it and does the exact same thing. Again, mirroring. Kind of thought that night was going to last forever. Kind of thought that night, they keep repeating that. Kind of thought that night was going to last forever. Daisy and Billy now look at each other and smile, mirroring each other again. Warren is spinning his drumsticks. He's strutting a bit. Then we see Last Forever kind of thought, and Daisy starts jumping in a circle. The band's rocking out. She's moving now. She's dancing on stage. She is the fire. She can also be the fire with fewer drugs in her system, it turns out, which is, I think, an empowering thing for her to discover. Okay. We're going to now get a little more information about what Simone just experienced. So we're going to see Simone and Bernie being driven in the back seat of a car. Simone says, "Look, it's not a problem." Bernie says, "What isn't?" Simone says, "They don't want any rumors." Bernie says, "But they're not rumors." Simone says, "Come on, Bernie, you know what I mean." Bernie's waiting for more. She's like, "What are you saying here?" Simone says, "Look, I promise this isn't going to change anything." Bernie says, "Of course it is. They won't want me going on the road with you. They're not going to want me anywhere near you." Simone's kind of speechless here. She's just watching Bernie through all this. Simone says, "I'm not going to let that happen. They can't." Bernie says, "You won't have a choice. Right now, this is when you have the choice. Tell them to go to hell." Simone takes that in. She kind of can't believe it. Like, what is Bernie asking her to do here? She pulls her head back a little, like, "I can't even believe you'd say that." Bernie says, "What?" Simone says, "This is what I've been working for, Bernie. This is what I've always wanted." Bernie says, "And here I thought I was." I mean, it is okay. Tough scene. Tough thing in a relationship for sure. Like, I think I love Bernie's line that right now, this is when you have the choice. Like, before you make the commitment, this today, like, you know what you're signing when you sign this. And once it is signed, you no longer have the power. This is the moment of your power. Um, so Bernie, I think it's a very astute observation, and I feel like it's a very true to life piece of advice thing to say. I think it's really good advice and could be shared with many people in the world right now. At any point, at any time, in any room, in any car, it just feels universal. And I also understand it's Bernie's right to be insulted if Simone says, "I choose my career over you." That's fair. Simone gets to choose. Simone gets to choose what she wants to do about all of these things, and Bernie has the right to feel things about that. Okay. And here we are. I mean, Simone doesn't really want to be put in this position of, like, I can either have my career or you, but yet that is the position she's being put in. And, just yuck. Just yuck. What a crappy situation for them. Um, but here we are. Okay. We're going to see a little bit more about the after party. I so enjoy this scene. We're going to get some glasses clinking at the SNL after party. And it kind of, again, we see some of these echo moments where we see glasses clinking at the SNL party. And it reminds me a bit of the shot we get right before the Pittsburgh show at the end of this episode, where the six and Daisy put their hands in the middle and they go, Pittsburgh. And we see that from overhead. So for some reason, this reminds me of that, like the overhead shot. But anyway, okay. So whose glasses are clinking? Graham, Warren, and Eddie's. Warren then sees something across the room and walks towards it. Says, "I'll be right back." Warren's walking towards Lisa Crown, the actress who announced them, the one who was hosting Saturday Night Live. She's drinking alone. My goodness. Warren says, "Hey, you were amazing tonight." She laughs. She says, "Why, thank you." Warren says, "So natural." She says, "You too." He says, "So funny." She says, "Thanks." Warren says, a lot of guys are intimidated by funny women. Lisa says, "Are they?" Warren says, "Oh, yeah, big time, big time. But, not me." And through, like, he has such a big smile here that I couldn't help but notice his mustache and how big his teeth were. Like, it didn't look like a real face. I don't know. I'm so sorry. His smile is so plastered on and his mustache is so big. Okay. He says, "Big time, but not me." I think it's pretty hot, actually. It's a real turn on. He bites his lip a little bit. But here's the thing. Lisa gets a little closer. She is wearing the pants in this conversation. She is in full command. You would think it would be Warren. You would think it would be Warren because he is the character we've been tracking for the entire show. And he approached her. But this man doesn't think he has a chance with this woman. And she is gracing him with her grace. So he's like, it's a real turn on. And you can see him almost shaking. She gets a little closer. She says, it's a real turn on for me. He says, no, I don't know. She says, drummers in rock bands. And then she licks her lips. Warren laughs in trepidation. He's like, what is happening? He says, that's exactly what I'm talking about. He's like, that funny thing I said, that's what I'm talking about. He's laughing awkwardly. Lisa holds her ground. She looks him down and up and nods her head like, I said what I said. Warren's like, are you serious? And his smile fades a little bit like, oh, that worked. Yes, he approached her, but show me a woman who's more in command. Okay. All right. Billy and Daisy are walking through the same party. He's like, how'd it feel? They're smiling at each other. Daisy says, it felt good. He says, yeah. She says, yeah, I mean, not as good as cocaine. And now there is a medical emergency happening. Some sort of ruckus is happening in this building. Somebody's calling for help. Somebody needs a medic. We hear a siren wailing. Somebody's asking, call an ambulance. Daisy and Billy are looking a little alarmed as they see people running. And then we see cut to Teddy being wheeled out of the building on a stretcher. Billy and Daisy following, and Billy just looking like he's going to cry, head in his hands. Rod gets the crowd to go back as they get Teddy onto the ambulance. And then we're going to cut to the hospital waiting room. Rod and the whole band is there. The doctor comes out. Billy stands first because he sees the doctor first, and then they all do. They're so worried about Teddy. They all owe a lot to Teddy. The doctor says there was a blockage in the blood flow to his heart. Reading that, did anybody here ever see the show Xena Warrior Princess? Do you remember when she would go in like every episode, she'd be like, ha! She would do like a little, like some sort of like a warrior cry, and then she would like get somebody right here. She'd like karate chop them right here, and she'd go, I cut off the blood flow to your brain. You have 30 seconds to live, or like, I don't know. I don't know why this made me think of that, but when the doctor says there was a blockage in the blood flow to his heart, it's the only place that I could think to go. I apologize. Okay. Billy says, what does that mean? He didn't see Xena Warrior Princess. Apparently, it wasn't available yet. The doctor says, it means we might not know the extent of the damage for a while, but he's stable. Daisy sighs. Billy's like, puts his head on his hands. She says, okay, thank you. Billy's normally the one to jump in and say thank you, but Daisy's taken over because Billy can't do it today. He's too rattled. Billy sits down. Daisy is like rubbing her heart. I thought that was an interesting choice. There's a lot of that happening with Daisy here. Okay, we're going to see Billy and Daisy have switched location. They've gone to the chapel in the hospital. The camera pans up over a pew. Again, a lot of that happening in this episode too. We see in this one, the camera is below the pew, comes up over the pew to see Daisy and Billy. Later, we're going to see a camera go around a chair. So we're getting a bunch of this in this episode. Billy and Daisy, they're sitting in a pew towards the front. Daisy has her arm on the pew sort of turned towards Billy. And Billy says, I could really use a drink right now. Daisy nods. She says, you think things happen for a reason? Billy says, I don't know. He looks at her and says, do you? She says, I used to. I used to believe in everything, in God and angels and heaven and somebody up there looking down on us. But that night in Miami, I swear I died for a moment and there was nothing there, not a goddamn thing. So now I don't know. Billy kind of raises his eyebrows a little bit and he's like, wow, Daisy, you're really cheering me up. Thank you. She says, well, I'm just telling the truth. And they both chuckle because, yeah, that's kind of them in a nutshell. Billy pauses a second. He says, I I really like this monologue. Um, it's perhaps a little previously on Daisy Jones and the Six, but the way Sam Claflin delivers this feels like we're being guided down a velvet tunnel of his voice. It's just like beautifully executed and kind of lulls you to sleep. He says, "So, how do you explain us? I mean, I should have been dead long before now." Daisy's watching him. He says, "Killed in action like half the kids in my high school, or maybe drinking myself to death back in Hazelwood like my old man. But that's not what happened, is it?" He looks at her. He says, "What happened is I started playing in a band. I met Teddy Price buying cigarettes in a Hollywood market. They both smile. They're both like having their moment of Teddy memories. He gazes at her. He says, and then I met you. And here we are in this place with this life. And you're telling me there's no one up there looking out for us?" Very gently, he says, "Come on." And tears are rolling down her face. The "come on," because it's a monologue, but it's gotten softer and softer as he's gone. And at the point when he says, "You're telling me there's no one out there looking out for us?" Come on. Like, you know better than that, Daisy. Like, there's somebody looking out for us. I mean, isn't that a beautiful thing? Because, you know, she has no contact with her parents. She's probably in many ways feels alone in this world, especially now that Nikki's gone. Yes, like the band is in her life and she's got Rod and they had this scary moment with Teddy. She's not in contact with Simone. She's lost a lot of stuff, but to think that also there's nobody up there looking out for you after she just almost died, got to be really scary for her. So I think what a beautiful thing for Billy to say to her here, even though it is a little previously on Daisy Jones and the Six. Anyway, the door opens. Rod comes in with the surgeon. Rod says, "Hey guys, he's awake." They turn around. Billy's like, "Can we see him?" Surgeon says, "One at a time." Daisy knows who that needs to be. She says to Billy, "You go." Billy has basically tears in his eyes and he gets up and almost runs out of the room. Rod smiles at Daisy and she turns back to the cross on the wall and she smiles. We're going to see in Teddy's room, there's the doctor is consulting with Teddy. Doctor says, "But it's on you too, Mr. Price. You need to take care of yourself. So no more smoking, no more drugs, cut back on the red meat and the alcohol." Teddy's like, "Well, what about work?" The doctor says, "Depends. How stressful is your work environment?" And here, Billy was here for this. We didn't know that until now, but Billy scoffs. His arms are folded. He's smiling at Teddy like, "I'm the stressful work environment." Teddy is looking at Billy. The doctor says, "You won't survive another one of these." That's a sobering thing for Billy to walk into, isn't it? Teddy says, "I understand." The doctor leaves. Billy thanks the doctor. So he's back to his thank yous. Billy sits down next to Teddy and he says, the first thing he has to say, "I love you, Teddy." He nods at him. He says, "I owe everything to you. If you died, I can't." He's at a loss for words. He says, "I don't know what I'd do." He's struggling. Teddy says, "I'm not going to die, son. No, not yet." Billy has tears in his eyes. Teddy's like, "But when I do, you definitely are not speaking at my funeral." Teddy laughs and coughs. And Billy says, "Just promise me you'll take it easy, all right? No more burning the candle at both ends." Teddy, "If it kills you," Teddy says, "then I die on top of the world." Okay. They shake hands. I think, I guess that's within Teddy's rights to live the way he wants to live and die the way he wants to die. Um, Beautiful moment. Not quite father and son moment. But Billy doesn't get to have this conversation with any other type of father in his life. So it's beautiful. The Six is in the waiting room, and they're with Daisy. And the camera is slowly pushing past them onto the door. Ooh, who's going to show up? Simone rushes in. She sees Daisy. She rushes to Daisy. She says, "Is he okay?" Daisy says, "He's okay." Simone's so relieved. And then we're going to cut to a scene with those two characters outside because we need to get them to reconcile. And this was the thing that was going to bring them together, to be honest. I don't know what else would have, but this will do it. Daisy and Simone are in the hallway. They're standing side by side, looking straight ahead, not looking at each other. Simone's reminiscing. She says, "It was Teddy who noticed me, took me under his wing, gave me my shot. I just thank God he's going to be okay." And Daisy nods. She looks up. She's emotional. She says, "I want us to be okay." She's crying. She says, "What I said was so awful, and I'm so sorry." Um, Simone's like, Daisy. She shakes her head like, stop. Like, don't, let's not do it. Daisy's crying softly. Simone hugs her, and Daisy just cries as she's being held. Um, that's a good apology. That wasn't Daisy saying, explaining, have you ever seen the apology where somebody just wants to explain themselves? Daisy doesn't. She's just like, what I said was awful and I'm sorry. Period. Um, we both know I sucked that day. Like that's it. So and Simone giving her that hug, it's complicated. There were a lot of layers in that conversation that they had that broke them apart, but Simone gives her a hug and water is now a little bit under that bridge. So the ice has thawed. The water is under the bridge. Okay, interview Graham says, I remember after that a sense of calm. We're going to get the opening notes of the song Barracuda by John Cale. We're going to see fans outside the main door of a hotel. They're cheering, they're waiting for somebody from the band to come out, and we see a car drive past the fans and stop in front of a rear door of the hotel that you wouldn't really notice. Interview Karen says, the usual band stuff, nothing really out of the ordinary. Interview Eddie says, other than Warren dating a movie star. Interview Warren's like, I was dating a movie star. We see in the scene Billy rush out of the rear door of the hotel. He opens the car door for Daisy. They both get in real quick, as incognito as they could be, but the fans spot them anyway, and they run a few feet, but not quite in time from one door to the other, and they safely get into the car. So a couple of the signs the fans are holding, one says "Billy, be mine," and one says "We all love you, Daisy." Billy, be mine. No, he's mine. Okay. All right. Interview Daisy's voice says, and Billy and I we were never just one thing, but for the first time, I think I could imagine a version of us that might last. Wait till she expresses that a few scenes from now. Okay, in the diner that they go to, because it's not Apple Pan, but it's the closest they could get. Taylor, the waitress, she picks up a couple orders of burgers and fries. She brings it to Daisy and Billy's table. They're laughing about something. They're both in hats. Billy, maybe because he's trying to be incognito, he's got a Pittsburgh Pirates hat on and a jacket. Daisy also wearing a hat and a jacket, but there's no way you'd miss Daisy. Uh, Billy says, oh, thank you. And Daisy says, thank you. They get their burgers. Taylor's like, I know you from somewhere. Billy looks at Daisy. Daisy's eyes go wide. She smiles. Taylor's like, no way. Well, as long as you're in my section, nobody's going to bother you. You have my word. Billy thanks her. Taylor walks away. Daisy chuckles. She's like, it's crazy. It's only going to get worse with the next album. Ah, somebody spoke the words. The next album. Billy's eyebrows kind of like, the next album? He smiles. He says, you've been thinking about it? She says, yeah, I mean, sure, I've been thinking about it. He says, well, have you written anything? She shakes her head a little bit. He says, yeah, me neither, not really. He sips his coffee. She says, she has like, her mouth sort of forms the word well, but what she says is, there is one song that I love this. Billy looks up at her quickly, and then he immediately gestures to Taylor to get the check. Check, please. I don't want to be sitting in this diner one more second if you've got a song. So good. We're gonna go to Karen and Graham. They are in bed at the hotel. They just had sex. And then Karen sits up. She says, we're gonna miss sound check. Graham says, Billy can play my part. Karen says, like he ever could. She grabs her shirt. She's starting to put it on. Graham says, gotta love it when you say stuff like that. He puts on his tidy whities and he gets out of bed to go to the bathroom. And she's putting on her shirt and she feels soreness in her breasts. And she instantly knows what that means. You can see it all over her face. Karen knows she is pregnant. We're going to get a pre-lap of the song It Was Always You, which is a song that Daisy's currently working on. It's the idea that she wants to share with Billy. I don't know what this space is. This shot starts from a behind a chair, like an armchair in this room. It comes around and it reveals Daisy playing guitar and singing to Billy. She's sitting up a little higher than he is, and they're right across from each other. They're in this room that's like it looks like not a lobby of a hotel, but like a second or third or fourth floor sitting area that somehow nobody else is in. There's just a never-ending bay of windows. There's a full-on piano in the room, but there's like, I don't know, a table with a big bouquet, like a big arrangement of flowers on it, and there's plants all over. It doesn't look like a meeting room. I don't know. I don't know where this is. I don't know what this is, but it's a beautiful space for this scene. It's very beautifully lit, and the way they're blocked, it feels very intimate. It feels like a room in a house, but I think they're still at the hotel. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Um, so Daisy is singing her lyrics. Got a live one warned his friends, this is not a faith to awaken. Their love will never live, they always said. To see the toll it could have taken. Billy's smiling a little and watching. She says, like I could forget my name. The camera is, for all of this, the camera's sort of slowly pushing in on them from different angles, but they're both together in the frame. So again, it just feels gentle and like here they are together. Um, I swore I'd never darken your door. You'll say it was insane. Get a close up on Daisy, then we get a little closer on Billy. We never could go back to before. We get a side shot with both of them in it. She says, I didn't know it. I can't control it. Long pause. And then she sings louder, not fully belting, but louder. And Billy looks up at her. She's saying, it was always you, long always. She looks back at him. She says, it was always you. Close up on Billy as he looks up at her because he's a little bit below her. So he's looking up at her and he has got that intense Billy look. I was always true. It was always you. He smiles a little bit and she does too. And she's a little embarrassed with herself because she says that was a bit of a mess. Her hand goes to her forehead. I think I think the embarrassment there is not so much because the song was a mess, but because it was so real for her. Like that's what she thinks about Billy, and Billy probably knows that all too well. Billy very softly says Daisy, and he puts a hand on her knee. She smiles at her and gazes back. It's like, hey, I mean, what a connection between those two. Oof. I just, how could you be Camilla and just continue? Like, I don't know. I don't know. When this is happening, watch this scene 5 times and tell me you want to be Camilla. I don't know. Okay, right. So the interviewer says, can you talk about what happened in Boston? And then we're going to see interview Graham say, did Karen tell you? It's not my place to say anything, really. The interviewer says, she told me. His face, I don't even know what the word is for this. He needs to fix his face. His face is like 1,000 emotions flash across it in a short period of time. He says, I need some water. He gets up. We're going to go back to Karen and Graham's hotel room to see what's happening in 77. He comes over to her smiling. She told him right away. She didn't even hesitate a second. Graham's like, oh my God. He's so happy and she is so stunned. These two people did not get the same news. My goodness. But they did. He's like, oh my God, oh my God. He hugs her. He kisses her. She's like, Graham, please. He's like, I'm sorry. I don't think I've ever been this happy. Karen pulls away. She's like, Graham, please stop. She's clearly not as happy as he is. Graham's like, hey, what's wrong? What's the matter? His eyes go wide. He's like ready to protect. He's like, what do I need to do? Are you okay? Are you like, he's ready to do whatever he needs to do. He says, what's wrong? What's the matter? We can make this work. She says, how? He says, the worst possible thing. He says, I don't know. We can figure it out though, right? I mean, we can get a new keyboardist. Uh-oh. There is not one thing we have seen from Karen to date in this show that would suggest to me that him thinking getting a new keyboardist would be the fix for her. Well, she says, "Excuse me? I'm not quitting the band to raise a baby, are you?" Clearly, that was not his plan. He says, "No, I'm sorry. I didn't." She's like, "I never wanted this. You know that." Graham says, "Karen, you didn't want this either, like him and her." He says, "Can we take some time? Think about it?" He's hopeful. She looks back. She stays blank. She doesn't want or need to take the time to know what she thinks. She's pretty locked in, it seems. Interview Graham says the next day we went home. Interview Karen says, "Effing Pittsburgh." Uh, Look, women have all kinds of experiences with this. There are women who always know they want kids. There are women who always know they don't. There are women who initially don't want kids and then meet somebody and decide they do. In terms of like whether or not you can have them, totally different thing altogether. But wanting to have children is like everything goes here in life. Karen is a person who knows she does not want to have kids. That's the story. Okay. Uh, Graham thinks she's one of those people who's going to change. And frankly, at in 77, there probably weren't a ton of models in his life of people who were making the kind of choice that Karen wanted to make. I don't even know if he gets it, like if it can possibly compute for him. So there's that. Okay, we're going to go to Pittsburgh. The crowd is waiting on the tarmac where the Daisy Jones and the Six private jet is. The camera pans up over the crowd, kind of like it did over the pews earlier in the at the hospital. The intertitle Pittsburgh comes up. The band is getting off the plane. Lisa Crown came with Warren. She came for the home visit. Marlene Dunn, Mother O. Graham, and Billy is there, and she is so excited. She's standing next to Camilla and Julia. Graham runs into his mother's arms. She's like, "Oh, my baby." Um, Eddie runs to his grandmother, "Grandma." Um, Probably the most excited Eddie's been the entire episode. Uh, Graham introduces Karen to his mom. Marlene's going to hug Karen. There's going to be a lot of great Marlene hugs in this episode. Billy picks up Julia. Camilla shouts to Billy, "Daddy!" like emulating Julia. She kisses Billy. Daisy is standing there awkwardly because she has nobody to greet. She watches Graham with Billy's mom, with Graham and Billy's mom, and Billy's right next to them. Marlene calls to her. She says, "Daisy Jones." And Daisy says, "Mrs. Dunn." And she comes over, she walks to her, and she gets a big Marlene hug. Um, Daisy's like, "Oh," just caught off guard. She's smiling. She doesn't know what to make of it. Because when has a mother figure ever hugged Daisy? Probably zero times in her life. So I don't know if Daisy has any frame of reference for parental love of, I mean, look, she's got Teddy, but I think Teddy is more of a father figure to Billy than I would think of him as a father figure to Daisy, though I do think that there is a little bit of that relationship. But yeah, moms, hmm, Daisy's not had the best experience there. But here's a mom giving her a big old hug. We're going to get a pre-lap of the song Earth, Shining Star by Earth, Wind, and Fire. We're going to see Marlene Dunn's house. It has a big welcome home banner on it in the front. People are walking in. Out back, we start with a girl blowing bubbles in the foreground, and then we see Graham and Karen walking into the backyard. Graham says, "We didn't even come to this neighborhood when I was a kid." Karen says, "Now you bought your mom a house here." It was a huge house. Marlene Dunn is being treated like a queen by her boys. My goodness. Warren hugs Marlene. This scene is so cool. Uh, it's such a small scene, but it's so cool. And I'm not even sure why it's this cool, to be honest. Warren hugs Marlene. Warren says, "Mrs. Dunn, it's good to see you. This is Lisa." So he's introducing her to his girlfriend. Marlene recognizes Lisa. You don't have to tell Marlene twice. Marlene is stoked. She's like, well, obviously. Lisa's like, hi. Marlene full on fangirls. She's like, I mean, wow. God, I loved you in that Gene Wilder movie. Lisa's like, you're so sweet. Thank you. I want to make a note about the camera choice here, but let's talk about the rest of the scene first. Marlene's a little bit confused and she throws just a speck of shade, maybe a little bit more than a speck on Warren. She's like, and you're with Warren? Warren laughs. He's like, yeah, right? I've been saying. Um, I mean, Marlene is just, you're with you, but you with Gene, well, you're with Warren. Like, it's so good. So here's the really weird thing about this scene, and I don't totally understand why this choice was made, but it is a very uh noticeable choice to me. The camera on these three people is circling them, like sweeping circle around Lisa, Warren, and Marlene in a way that I feel like I've only ever seen a technique used like this when like you've got love interests in a movie or a TV show and they kiss for the first time. Like that is the way the camera treated this scene. I can't think of another time I've seen this kind of motion. Maybe you can. Tell me if you do. I don't know if this choice was made because then you can do it in one shot. Like you don't have to set up from three different angles or multiple angles to get all these people. You just get this camera guy or whatever machinery was used. You get it circling around these three people. But I just think it's so interesting that I don't feel like I've ever seen that unless it was this big pivotal romantic moment in something. But here it's Lisa, Warren, and Marlene, and they're just meeting Marlene. Like Lisa's just meeting Marlene. Um, whose perspective is this circling from? It's so weird and so cool, and I don't get it, but I love it. And then the camera needs to spin out of orbit and it breaks off and it finds Eddie, and he's walking with people we don't know because Eddie can't even be with his grandma right now. Eddie says, I'm telling you, it's going to make the Stooges look like the Carpenters. And you got the Ramones and the stuff coming from London. And Eddie loses his train of thought as he sees Camilla. Camilla sees him. She gives him not a wave, but she raises a hand. And Eddie's like, let's go this way, you people who shall remain nameless. We can't even give Eddie people we know to talk to or people he knows. He was so excited to see his grandma, but where's his grandma? Camilla's talking with somebody else, but not really. And then she says, I'm gonna go hang with them for a sec, whoever you are. I just like we don't need you people to have speaking roles. Okay. Okay, so where is Camilla going to go? Well, Daisy is currently sitting under, like on a blanket under an umbrella with Julia. Julia is right in front of Daisy, sitting in front of her, not facing her, as if Daisy is doing her hair. But I don't think Daisy is doing her hair. I don't know why this choice in seating position, Julia, but good call. All right. Do you? So Camilla comes over. She says, hey, Mama, why don't you let me and Daisy have a quick little second alone and you can go talk to Daddy? He's right there, like skedaddle. Daisy says, no, she's fine. Julia goes to Billy, though. Daisy says, she's a beautiful kid. Camilla says, she is obsessed with you. She's laughing. Daisy is watching Billy with Julia. She's like fixated on Billy and Julia together in a way similar to how she was looking at him when she went to their house party so many episodes ago before they sang Ooh La La together. And she handed Julia over to Billy, and she saw the way he was looking at her and handling Julia. And I think maybe this is bringing that back for her. Camilla says, every day it's like, I want to look like Daisy Jones. I want my hair to look like Daisy Jones. I want to sing like Daisy Jones. Camilla sees Daisy watching Billy and Julia. She says, do you ever think about it? Daisy says, having kids? Camilla says, yeah, having kids. Daisy says, no. Camilla says, why? Daisy says, my parents didn't want kids, my mother especially. So I went from being an accident to an inconvenience to an afterthought. And then I think the worst thing of all. Camilla says, what was that? Daisy says, competition. and they hold each other's gaze. In a Western, this would be like where you hear the bird caw or like the doo 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 wah wah wah. Um, just the choice to hold it there felt like I inserted my own way over the top sound effect. Daisy says, she takes a bite of something. She says, all parents F up their kids. Camilla says, that's true. Daisy says, I don't really want to be responsible for doing that to somebody else. Camilla says, and that's why you won't. And she says with such a knowing tone, she says, don't count yourself out this early, Daisy. You are all sorts of things you don't even know. Daisy looks at Billy and Julia again. Camilla clocks that. Camilla, had you only seen Daisy crooning It Was Always You to Billy a moment ago, okay? You wouldn't have liked it. The guys of the six are going to be talking to Chuck. I mentioned earlier that I have been working on a bonus episode that I have actually already recorded where I compared differences of the book and the show. And the makeup of the six is different in the book. And what I forgot, and I didn't mention, I talk about that a little bit, but I just want to cover myself now and say, in the book, Chuck is not Chuck Loving. Chuck is a different character who was in the band and dies at war. Pete Loving is the guy who stays. And this guy in the show is called Chuck. So it's not an exact mapping of name to character. I just wanted to reflect on that here because I'll say more about it in that episode, which is going to come out a while from now. But it is kind of an interesting choice to change the name of this character to somebody who died in the book. I don't know. It's a choice. So okay, the guys of the six are talking to Chuck, and he says, "So wait, you go by Dr. Loving now?" Chuck says, "Yeah, DDS, Doctor of Dental Services." Warren says, "Dr. Loving." I love that, man. It sounds like a skin flick. It feels like a Warren thing to say. The guys all laugh. Graham says, "Well, good on you, man. You built a nice life here. You did well. Good job." Um, Chuck says, "Yeah, thanks." We get a slow push in on Chuck, which for me makes this so funny. He says, "Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think about if I'd have stayed in the band, but then I think I've got something that you guys will never have, financial security." Warren, we cut really quick to Warren and Billy standing next to each other. Warren's mouth, his face looks like the emoji with the face with the straight line for a mouth. And Billy can't even, he looks up. He's like, um, I've got something you guys will never have, financial security. Camera continuing to push in. It's not glamorous, but it's something, you know? Besides, after taxes and split six ways, you guys can't be making that much, right? Awkward. Grim's like, let's get Chuck another beer. And then we see interview Chuck, who rolls his eyes up and throws his head back like, I have made a mistake. Um, you know what, Chuck, fair enough. Like most bands don't have this kind of success. You just rolled the dice wrong in this one particular situation. It's fine. Karen's going to come out of the house, and Camilla approaches her with a smile, like, yeah, I get to talk to Karen. But then she sees Karen's weird energy, this very dark energy coming from Karen. She looks like she's seen a ghost, and Camilla is instantly worried and does her Camilla thing and instantly knows what it's all about. So Camilla's like, what's going on? Karen says, no, it's nothing. I'm fine. And Camilla holds her gaze, and Karen gives her a look, and Karen and Camilla right away knows what everything is happening. She's totally aware of the whole situation, doesn't need Karen to speak any words, and she goes, Camilla says, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And she gives her a big hug. I mean, when you see this scene on a page, I've got to say, if you are Suki Waterhouse and Camilla Morone looking at this scene on the page, uh, where the dialogue is, "What's going on? No, it's nothing. I'm fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." And the subtext is, Camilla just found out Karen is pregnant. It takes some actors to get this across the line, okay? Like, very impressive. My goodness. Okay, after the party, Billy and Camilla are in bed with the lights on, looking at her photos. Billy's like, "I like this one." She says, "Yeah." She says, "This, that's actually my favorite too." And we see it's a photo of five guys holding a surfboard in front of, like, at the shoreline and looking out into the ocean. He flips it. He sees a photo of Julia playing at the beach. He's like, "What's this?" She says, "Oh, she was chasing sandpipers at the beach, and she just thought it was the funniest thing she'd ever seen in her whole life." Billy says, "Oh, yeah, she looks so happy." Camilla's like, "Yeah, she's growing up, huh?" Pause. Julia's a smart girl. Watching sandpipers at the beach is the funniest thing on the planet. Have you ever seen this? They're so adorable. They have these little, tiny little spindly legs, and they get right up to the edge. Like, they never learn. They want to get as far close to the waves as they possibly can. And then the wave comes in, and they have to run for their lives to get away from the water. And then the wave goes away, and they go back out, and they're like, and they go closer again. And then the wave comes in, and they're like, "Ah!" It's so good. I Julia knows what's up. Okay. She knows what a good time looks like. And I have done that in my, like, much later in life. Okay. Uh Still fun. Okay. So they're on the subject of Julia now. And I was like, "Yeah, she's growing up, huh?" Subtle segue happening here. Billy's like, "Yeah." Camilla says, "What would you think about maybe trying again?" He looks at her. She's like, "Not now, obviously, but maybe after the tour." He doesn't seem against it. She's like, "I don't know, Julia could definitely use a sibling, and I feel like we would be ready this time." Billy says, "You want to have another baby?" Camilla whispers. She's like, "I really do." Billy gets closer. She's like, "What?" He says, "Okay," and he kisses her. She's like, "Was that a yes?" He's like, "Mm-hmm." She's laughing. She's like, "Well, not now." And he, like, I presume they try right then. She says, "We're in your mother's house." He's like, "I don't care." And then we're going to see Daisy, who's in the next room. She can hear all of this. It's dark. She's listening to all of this, and Camilla's laughing. Billy's like, "No, come on." Interview Daisy says, "I remember that night. It was the first time in I don't know how long that I didn't want to take anything. I didn't want alcohol. I didn't want drugs. I knew exactly what I wanted." We are going to see the band huddle at the Pittsburgh concert. The camera starts on Daisy looking at Billy. He's giving a pep talk. We're also seeing Eddie in this shot watching Billy. Crowds cheering in the background. Billy says, "I can't speak for all of you, but I sure as hell wouldn't trade this for anything." Billy looks at Daisy. He says, "Thank you." Graham says, "All right, who are we playing for tonight?" Billy says, "For family. Pittsburgh on three." Daisy and Billy smile at each other. They all put their hands in. One, two, three, Pittsburgh. And we see from overhead as all their hands go up. Um, you know, cool shot. On stage, we're going to see the song Regret Me getting played. Billy is having the absolute time of his life. Uh, Maybe the happiest we've ever seen him performing, I think, in this show so far. He's doing a lot of his shimmy. He's strumming his guitar. Daisy's got her little shorts and her knee-high boots. Her legs look a million miles long in this outfit. She's got like a short, like, tied shirt and a shawl. She just looks tall. Um, she's doing her alternating bended knee dancing. You know, do it with me, folks. That's it. That's all you gotta do. Um, we're gonna get we need to keep finding creative ways to shoot these different locations. So we actually get a shot from the nosebleed seats of a packed stadium. Daisy and Billy, they start their lyrics, and Daisy's kind of seductively singing into the mic. Not exactly seductively, but a little bit. They say, you regret me and I'll regret you, except I don't care what you feel. Daisy does a little thing that I like to call the blooming flower gesture. Except I don't care what you feel, and I totally already do. Cool choice. Nice movement. Marlene and Camilla and Julia are watching from the stands. Marlene is a proud mama. Okay. We hear I'm the slippage in the system with a natural gift how I move. So go ahead and regret me, but I'm beating you to it, dude. We get some cheering. Daisy takes her microphone off the stand so she can walk forward. We get Billy go, ah, because I love that part. And then they sing together louder. You regret me and I'll regret you. You could handle your liquor. You can't seem to handle the truth. Daisy is going to come over to Billy. She's going to sort of turn her back to his side and she's going to slide down it. I'm the slippage in the system and I'm perfectly ready to strike. And then, so go ahead and regret me, but I'm not easing up on this mic. They're both singing with a smile. Again, this is a thing that we are used to Daisy doing, but they've spent so much time with each other that he's singing with smiles now. And then, the band kind of rocks out at the end and then Billy ends it with, ow. um, My little heart for Sam Claflin. Okay. Cheers and applause is what happens after this. And Billy says, thank you, Pittsburgh. He throws a pick into the audience. And the band stands together and bows. They're going to wave and exit the stage. And then everything comes apart for Eddie. Cheering continues. Backstage, Warren runs up to Eddie. You were ripping, man. Oh my God. Eddie is fired up. He's getting ready to go back out on stage, do one more song with Daisy, like, he's done before. The stagehand is getting him his guitar, and as the stagehand is handing it to Eddie, Billy takes it instead, and he says, can I take this one? Doesn't wait for an answer, takes the guitar, calls to Daisy, says, Daisy, come on. Billy goes on stage with Daisy and leaves Eddie looking like his favorite toy was stolen. This is not going to stand for Eddie. I think we well know that at this point. The crowd cheers as Daisy goes out with Billy. Warren is going to give Eddie a beer, like maybe this will help. Daisy and Billy smile at each other. It's a little odd for Daisy. She's like, wasn't this supposed to be Eddie? But she's fine. It's whatever. Cool. This is who I'm singing with. We're going to get the opening notes of the song 2 Against 3. Billy is beaming, looking out at Daisy. He's having just the memory of his life doing this show for Pittsburgh in front of his family. Eddie is pissed. Daisy's singing The Days Were Wide Open. Interview Eddie is going to give us some context here. She says, you got to understand, going about your life like that, feeling like a second-class citizen in a first-class resort, it messes with you. It messed with me. Backstage, Rod says to Eddie, let's not ruin it by being mad, huh? Eddie's like, no, F him, Rod, and F this. Rod's like, Eddie. Yeah. This is going to be hard for Rod to manage his way out of this one, I think. Graham, meanwhile, is glowing, walking with Karen. He's like, I think I saw my old algebra teacher, Mr. Grant. He told me I never amount to anything. Ha, Mr. Grant. So who's laughing now? Karen nods. Graham's like, you okay? She says, I'm just tired. I think, would you be mad if I stayed at the hotel tonight and instead of at Mrs. Dunn's house? Graham says, no, you want me to come with you? She says, no, stay with your mom. I just need some rest. Graham says, oh, okay, whatever you want. He kisses her. He's like, bye. The song is continuing. Daisy's singing. They're up in the morning. I'm bathed and going. We're getting little lyrics here and there, but we're seeing a bunch of like flashes of what's happening for other people as we go through this song. So we're going to see Teddy making a smoothie. We hear interview Billy say there's the right thing to do and then there's the right thing to do for yourself. And the thing is they're almost never the same thing is the problem. We see Teddy eating a healthy dinner alone, looking very unimpressed. We see Teddy flipping TV channels, looking unimpressed. We see Teddy looking out his pool, probably still unimpressed. He's making healthy choices, but is he living, you might ask? Daisy's song, This Was Never Any Cause for Alarm. We're going to see the sort of the button on the Camilla and Karen conversation. So Camilla and Karen are in the car. Camilla's sort of smoothing Karen's hair. Karen's crying. She gets out of the car and Camilla comes with her. The building that they're going into says Isaacson Family Health Clinic. So they haven't used the word abortion, but that is what is going to happen here. They haven't used much language for this at all, actually. The whole thing, the pregnancy even. The song continues, and it seems you have a choice to make. The shell is white and yours to break. Either way, it's just as well. All I need is a promise I can keep to myself. So those are the lyrics we're hearing with Camilla and Karen. And then we're going to hear the next lyrics we're going to hear are, I'm nowhere near you, nowhere near where I should be, feeling our hearts a beating tenderly 2 against 3. We're going to see Simone, the next chapter of the Simone and Bernie story. Simone is leaving. Bernie, we hold on Simone for a minute. She's looking down. She's in a kitchen looking down at bags that are packed. And Bernie is sitting on the couch, like right across from the kitchen, and crying. And Simone's going to leave. So I guess when presented with the choice of career versus Bernie, Simone chose her career. And for what it's worth, now as we go into the next scene, like these words that we hang on, feeling our hearts a beating tenderly 2 against 3. It is interesting because Daisy would have written this song a long time ago, I think before she met Billy. But 2 against 3 feels like Daisy and Billy versus Billy, Camilla, and Julia. That's how I interpret it if I take the context of the show, not necessarily the timing of the lyrics being written. Okay, so with that said, that sends us into our next scene, one of our last scenes. Billy and Daisy are doing a crossword puzzle at his mom's house. Daisy's like, here we go, 29 across, blank and fro. He's like, to and fro. She's like, there you go, you got one. She writes it down. Well done, Billy. They both laugh. She looks at him. He's like, what? She says, I just had a vision of us years from now. She says, yeah? She says, yeah. He says, how did I look? She's like, shit. He says, well, he laughs. So, Daisy. He's like, well, thank you. Wow. And what were we doing? She smiles. She's looking at the puzzle. She says, just this, just laughing and being silly. She sits up. She's looking at him. He says, well, I think we will be together in 20 years. And that's a bit of a troublesome thing for him to have said. So he quickly fixes it. He says, writing songs and playing stadium shows to sold out crowds. So there's this overlapping line here, writing songs and playing stadium shows, and then they overlap. He says sold out crowds. She says we should be together. Oh, this was the conversation he was trying to have, and this was the conversation she needed to have. They both freeze when she says this. Long pause. She says, I shouldn't have said that. He says, no. She stands. She's like, no, I'm going to go pack. Like it's been unsaid. Billy stands. He says, no, Daisy. They're face to face. They're very close. He says, I want that too. And he means it. I feel he totally, completely means it. She smiles a little bit. He says, but there's a but here. He says, but she's my wife. I'm never going to leave her. And Daisy's face drops a little, but not that because this was an unexpected answer. It's just like, Billy rushes to save this. He's like, but this is what we're supposed to be. She's not looking him in the eye anymore. He says, we play together. We feel whatever it is we feel. The highs, the lows, it's all part of it. And he says this with such feeling, like he's trying to persuade her. He's trying not to let Daisy slip away from him right now in this moment. He says, we write 10 more albums. He grabs her face and makes their foreheads touch to each other. He says, I mean, just think about what we could do, you and me. Daisy's eyes close. This is painful for her. He says, isn't this enough? We hear the front door close. Billy pulls away from Daisy and looks up. Daisy turns to Camilla, walks in. Billy goes to her. He's like, woo, gotta go. Daisy has a sad smile, like, this is what's gonna happen. Camilla's gonna come in and we're gonna break apart every time. Billy says, hey, I haven't seen you all morning. Where you been? Daisy's eyes close and we hear the engine of a plane. We're going to see the private jet for Daisy Jones and the 6 on the tarmac. Rod shouts, wheels up in 2 minutes. Billy rushes out of the plane. Mr. Barry! He gets a stuffed animal from his mom. I guess one that Julia left behind. She gives him a hug. They exchange love yous. Marlene hugs Camilla. And a woman says, I love you, Eddie. I was looking right at his grandma, who I thought was his grandma when that happened, but I don't think I saw her lips moving, so I don't know what to tell you. We see Eddie on the plane. He's pissed. We see Warren look out the window and he sees Lisa blowing kisses to him. Graham's like, I like her, man. She's cool. Warren says, I'm going to marry that woman. I mean, My understanding is Warren's been a bit of a player, but the moment he locked eyes on Lisa, it was done. Okay. Karen gets on the plane. She sits next to Graham. He puts his arm around her. He says, "Hey, get some good sleep." She nods and curls up on him, but with a secret. Um, Not looking happy, not looking like she's had a good day. Billy is playing a card game with Julia, and they're chatting about that. And we see Camilla in her seat looking out the window, tearing up. There's like a little storm cloud over her head, maybe a big one. And we see what she's thinking about. We flash back to she saw Billy and Daisy with their foreheads touching in that previous scene, a very intimate moment. She saw that, wanted to break them up, shut the door really loudly, and then walked into walked all the way in so that they could see her. On the plane, Billy looks over at her and sees her with the little storm cloud over her head. He says, "Hey, I love you." She looks at him, she smiles, but she doesn't respond. She puts her hand out. I don't know that she necessarily was aiming for him to grab it, but maybe she was. He does grab it, and they're holding hands across the aisle. And Billy is continuing to talk with Julia about the card game. Meanwhile, Daisy is in the back, and she can see Billy and Camilla's hands as they're holding each other. And we get the opening notes of the song from television, "See No Evil." Rod gets on the plane. He's like, "Next stop, Chicago, Illinois," which once again, sort of like when Graham earlier was like, it's just when you want things to be easy that they're hard. This is another one of those like bum 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 moments with a little dialogue because Rod gets on the plane and says, "Next stop, Chicago, Illinois." And we know from the very first episode, the opening seconds, we say the last show was in Chicago, Illinois. And here we go. We're going to Chicago. Um, so we get some cheers, but we get some not so cheers. There is a wide divide in this on this plane right now between people who are happy and people who are highly unhappy. People who are very unhappy include Grumpy Eddie, Sad Karen, Stormy Camilla. Billy looks at Camilla and then back at Daisy, who looks back at him. One might argue Daisy's not so happy here. Cut to black. The song is saying, "What I want now," and it's a whole lot more than anyhow. I want to fly a fountain. I want to jump, 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 jump a mountain. I mean, things you just can't have. So that's episode 9, folks. Who's excited for episode 10? We're going to bring this thing in for a landing, if you will, and it's so good. It's so fun, this part of the series. Music. Let's talk about music. "Dancing Barefoot" by Patti Smith. I always mention it. It's always the opening credits. "Gold Dust Woman" by Fleetwood Mac. Feels like forever ago that I talked about that song. "The Nihilistic Denialist" by Root Canal. "Hold the Line" by Toto. "Barracuda" by John Cale. "Shining Star" by Earth, Wind, and Fire. "See No Evil" by Television. And then Daisy Jones and the Six songs, we get "You Were Gone," "Aurora," "Regret Me." And I never know how to classify 2 against 3 because Daisy wrote this herself before joining the band. Definitely a song that was only Daisy's is "It Was Always You." Beautiful song. Okay, favorite quote. I've got a bunch of honorable mentions here. First one from Bernie: "You won't have a choice. Right now, this is when you have the choice. Tell them to go to hell." Solid in a way that maybe should have been my favorite quote, and I considered it making it my favorite quote, but it's just solid advice that probably applies to so many people right now, at any time, in any room, at any place. And so it makes like a universal thing out of a really specific situation, and I like that. The next quote, and there was no way I was going to try to make this the quote of the episode because I turn these things into Instagram posts and on a graphic, and there's no way this would have fit. Billy's monologue, but mostly because of how it ends. "So how do you explain us? I mean, I should have been dead long before now, killed in action like half the kids in my high school, or maybe drinking myself to death back in Hazelwood like my old man. But that's not what happened, is it? What happened is I started playing in a band. I met Teddy Price buying cigarettes in a Hollywood market, and then I met you. And here we are in this place with this life. You're telling me there's no one up out. You're telling me there's no one up there looking out for us? Come on. I mean, my favorite part of that is the last couple lines, especially the delivery of it. But you need the context of what came before it. It's an important bit of monologue. And I don't know, like, I think in another actor's hands, it might not have worked very well because this reads like previously on Daisy Jones and the Six, like I've said a few times, and that could sound awful, but it comes out smooth like butter. Okay. Next honorable mention is a pair, a duo of quotes. Rod says, "Don't you think it's time to add a little fire, a little scope?" Daisy says, "Rod, don't overthink it. I'm the fire." Well said. Okay. Favorite quote. I'm going to give this one to Karen, interview Karen. "Even in shambles, Daisy was a powerhouse." It feels like a thing that Karen would say, even though it's a short quote. Like, I feel like that's a Karen quote. And well describes the allure of Daisy Jones and her journey in this episode. So, well summed up. Okay. Questions for you. Actually, I have one, and it's more of a theme that I'd like people to explore. So feel free to put any comments in about this. The moms of Daisy Jones and the Six. We had an episode, was it it was early on. We had an episode that felt more like a dad's, the thought about dads. Like, let's think about what's happening with dads here. This one feels like the moms of Daisy Jones and the Six, and what it means to be a mom in the world of Daisy Jones and the Six. We see Marlene. We talk to Camilla. We talk to Daisy about being a mom. We get Karen's thoughts on being a mom. We see the letter, the envelope from Daisy's mom, so we can't forget that that's been there. Pretty much it's just Camilla's mom, I think, that we're not seeing here that we've talked about. So motherhood is definitely what feels to me like a theme of this episode from so many different angles. Also, Camilla saying she wants to be a mom of more kids. Like, let's be parents again. So like all of that is really like so many different angles of the same job in life, and people who are mothers, people who are thinking about being mothers or don't want to be mothers. So I would love to have people help me explore what that means to you in this episode. So tell me what comes out for you with that theme. I know it's a very broad question, but this feels like the place to put it. And that is episode 9. I mean, my goodness, we've got one more episode. I've got a whole bunch of interviews that I've been working on for you with various members of cast and crew. I've got, some my thoughts about a little bit of bonus content beyond that. And I've already dropped, my plans for one of those pieces in this episode coverage. So there's more ahead. Do not be alarmed if you've been worried. There's more to come. But I'm really looking forward to wrapping this up with episode 10. I mean, episodes 8, 9, and 10 are so like on fire. Just momentum has been built, and here we are. So let's see what happens in the next one as we close out the show. And in the meantime, everybody go out there. Don't be the muse. Be the somebody. Bye.